Brent is the founder and head trainer of Mavrixx, and it's for promoting mental health for almost a decade in BC and Canada. Here he is.
Thank you guys. How are you guys? Come on. How are you guys? Woo! I'm so stoked to see you all here because not too long ago, it was rare to see an audience like this of young people around the topic of mental health. I remember in my school, when I was a student, I tried to organize an event, and we booked out the largest room in our school. It held hundreds of people. And we were so excited, we were planning it, we were promoting it. We had a speaker come in from Vancouver Island. We had other speakers from Vancouver coming to speak and share their stories. And like 5 people showed up in this room, auditorium of hundreds of seats. And I just wanted to go home and crawl into a hole. But we made it work. We just had a good discussion. But now, these days, young people are involved in mental health, are aware of mental health, and there's this wave of mental health awareness happening, and that gets me excited. That gets you guys excited as well? Yeah, me too. But I see that as a good thing and a bad thing, because on one side, that's bad because there's more stress, there's more pressure on us as young people at younger ages than ever before. And things like technology and mobile phones, social media create pressure from society on us to do as well as everybody else. We compare ourselves to other people on social media, their front stage to our backstage. If we could have the next slide and show this image that I saw on Instagram of what society tells us. Get straight A's, play sports, but don't, this is for females mostly, but it's similar for guys. Play sports, but not only do sports. Have a social life. Be skinny, but not too skinny. Be polite, but have a voice, but not too loud. Etc., etc. Work more hours. Keep getting a better job, a better house, more money, perfect family, because what you have is never enough. Who can relate to that messaging? Yeah. And society says, why can't you just relax? All right? It's also a good thing because mental health is, again, reaching this tipping point where it's on our radar. It's people like Jay-Z are talking about mental health. Who would have thought? Selena Gomez is talking about her struggles and being open about mental health. Justin Trudeau, our Prime Minister, talking about mental health. It's starting to be on the radar, and it's starting to build that awareness, and that's where, with that awareness, we can get support for ourselves and our friends, our siblings earlier to help with those struggles if they're happening. We still have a long way to go. And I'm one of the least likely people to be involved in mental health. I never imagined myself being involved in mental health. In high school, I played hockey and partied. That's pretty much what I did. And I had a pretty normal childhood growing up, but my family never talked about mental health, and my friends never talked about mental health. It just wasn't on the radar. And so eventually, I started to wonder, and just this party lifestyle, where it was leading me. And I was drinking and smoking pot and partying, and just bad things kept happening. I remember I fell off a car on the way to a party on a dirt road in front of the car. And luckily the car stopped, but I was a little shaken up. I fell through a roof another time partying, and these wake-up calls just kept happening, and I said, I gotta do something about this, and just reminded myself that I want to change my life. I want to end this kind of lifestyle because it wasn't going well. And so I decided to give university a try. And often when you change your life like that and chart a new path, it's sometimes a lonely road. And I was isolating myself, and isolation is one of the worst things for mental health. But I knew I had this path to chart that I wanted to pursue. And I read books, I read biographies, I just did whatever I could to stay well, but I collapsed. And similar to the stories you just heard, I struggled. They told me I had psychosis, which I didn't know what that meant at the time, but it's essentially losing track of reality, where things don't make any sense and you believe things that aren't real, and you can have hallucinations, which are seeing and hearing things that aren't real. But I didn't understand it, and I just got back on track and tried to pretend like nothing happened. Still didn't tell anybody about it, my friends or in my school, because I was so ashamed and embarrassed, and that stigma around mental health was so real for me. And so I got back on track and just did my thing, went about my school life. But then the struggles returned. And it was much worse this time. I thought people were planning to kill me. I thought the world was coming to an end. I thought there was a nuclear bomb going to drop on us at any moment. And I was just hopeless and devastated and tried to take my own life. And I ended up, fortunately, in the hospital where I was safe, got on medication, and at that time I was diagnosed with schizophrenia. Not words you want to hear someone say about yourself, but, and again, it was devastating. I thought my future was over. I thought I would never be able to use my brain again, or work, or have a girlfriend or wife and kids, or go back to school. But at the same time, it was a relief, because it gave me something to study and something to understand and just get fit and healthy, and just use that as a reason to pursue health. Sometimes we need a reason, right? And sometimes that reason is a struggle. And I realized that struggle, that challenge, was actually my opportunity to promote health for myself and others, to connect and serve the community. And I want to share just a short video with you guys of a bit of my journey from that point. You guys want to see it? Yeah? All right. Mental illness no longer has to be a life sentence. And that's more true today than ever before in history, and that really gets me excited. Hi, my name is Brent Seal, and I run a social enterprise called Mavrixx, which is dedicated to empowering young people to overcome their mental health struggles and perform at a higher level and have fun and just live more fully. So we do that through speaking and workshops and training programs that we've developed. Well, the early days of my mental health struggles that I can remember are the early days of my college years. And I just spent a couple years in a ski resort after high school, just partying, working, snowboarding. And I thought I'd give university a try and transform myself into an active, engaged student, and just start learning more about the world. And I thought that would be a pretty simple, straightforward process. But in fact, it was quite challenging. And what I did was essentially isolate myself. And really, that's when I started to struggle and get paranoid, and just my mental health really started slipping. A psychologist actually identified what I was going through as psychosis, and I didn't understand what that meant at first, but I got on medication and made a decent recovery, but I sort of got back to my old routines and had a relapse about 1.5 years later, which was much worse. And the result of that was attempting suicide, just not seeing a way out and just seeing my future getting worse and worse. Fortunately, my family was close enough to me and around me to get me to a hospital, get stabilized. And that was the point at which I realized, okay, this is real. I was diagnosed with schizophrenia in the hospital. And you might think that was devastating, which it sort of was, but at the same time it was a big relief, because that gave me something to latch onto, something to study, something to understand. And by doing that and just committing myself to get as fit and healthy as possible, to never experience that again, and to share my story, my journey to help other people, that's been a driving force for my recovery since. One important part of my journey and recovery has been tapping into and really stumbling into the mental health community, which is essentially a collection of people and groups and organizations, nonprofits that are dedicated to supporting young people with their mental health. So if you're struggling with your mental health, I really encourage you to tap into that and
and seek out that support and education and guidance, because it's one of the most empowering things you can do in your journey of recovery. One of the most powerful parts of my journey has been tapping into the outdoor sports and hiking and mountains and rock climbing, trail running, because early in my struggles, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't go to school, hang out with my friends, drive a car, read a newspaper. And my mom was always a big hiker, consistently for decades. And I remember I said, "Mom, take me on a hike." And we went on a very simple, short hike, and I'll never forget the peacefulness I felt in that forest. It was an incredible feeling in a time where I just felt horrible mentally all the time. And it just drove me to do more, and that whole summer we just went on hiking every weekend. It was the one thing each week I looked forward to, was that weekly hike with my mom, and it was so therapeutic. And eventually I got into the outdoor club at my university and the Alpine Club of Canada, and into eventually mountaineering, and then climbing some big mountains and just taking it to the next level, and just that whole process of growth and peacefulness and therapeutic nature of the outdoors is something that's been a huge benefit to not only my mental health but my overall health. And so for you watching this, I don't promote the idea that you have to climb mountains or you have to do outdoor sports to recover or to feel good. But you gotta find that thing for you that makes you come alive, that gets you excited, that you care about, that allows the stress of your daily life to melt away because you get so into it. That's what the outdoors and mountains is to me, and that's one of the benefits it provides, and I think you can find that in anything.
Thank you. As it said, that video was made by James Frysack's studio. James Frysack's right there filming. Give him a little round of applause, everybody. Yeah. Awesome. We also climbed Denali together. But with that journey, if my story had ended there, it would be all right? Pretty smooth landing with climbing some mountains and running a business. But of course, that's not where it ended, right? And I heard this saying from someone on a podcast saying, entrepreneurship and running a business is like riding a wild horse. And you gotta see how long you can go without getting bucked off the horse, right? And at some point I realized I was riding 4 of these wild horses. I was trying to climb these big mountains, which is a pretty wild ride. When you're on these mountains in intense environments and situations where you could literally die that day, you're waking up, you're going to bed thinking tomorrow I might die on this mountain. It's a heavy experience. Entrepreneurship, trying to run a business, Mavrixx, another wild horse. I was also going through a breakup with a girlfriend of 6 years. That was another pretty wild ride. And I was also dealing with this illness of schizophrenia, trying to manage my life with medication and not too much therapy anymore because I wasn't going to therapy anymore, but just managing it on my own with my support system. And about a month after that video was made, about a month after climbing Denali, that final peak in Alaska, the struggles returned. And all the delusions, all the fear, all the paranoia from my illness returned. And I collapsed. And it felt very public at the time because I was doing a lot of things all at once, and I felt so vulnerable. But then I realized that in life, with illness, with anything, there are no finish lines. You see, we all try to get to these finish lines. I want to graduate school. I want to become a millionaire. I want to recover from this illness. And we think it's a destination. But in fact, it's an ongoing journey, and that's what I started to realize when my struggles returned. But I also reminded myself that from my previous struggles, what I learned and what I relearned again this past year was that your current state does not have to be your permanent state. And that's true for all of us. Whatever we're going through, in your current state in school, your friends, your school environment is not your permanent state. Things, if they're bad, those bad times always pass, and good times come ahead. And I wanted to share with you guys, if it's okay with you guys, just 5 core things I do to avoid getting stuck in struggle mode when I'm struggling. Does that sound good? Yeah? Come on, guys. Does that sound good? Yeah. All right. Awesome. Because I realize in my speaking that I do, I can't tell you you're not going to struggle. I can't tell you how to avoid struggling at all times. We're all going to go through struggles. We might be in one right now. But I can share this idea that you don't have to stay stuck in those struggles. And I wanted to share these 5 ways that I personally practice when I find myself struggling to get out of those struggles, get through them. And one of the first ones is just remove and reduce social media. I don't know if you guys use social media yet. You might not yet, but for me, my phone is a big part of my life. Facebook, Instagram, email. And when I find myself struggling, I just take those apps off my phone and just stop using them for an extended amount of time, because I find all that chaos and noise from social media, from my phone, all the notifications, all the updates from everybody in my life, just creates noise and stress in my brain. So that's one thing to think about. Another is just lean on my core supports. So the people around me, the people around you guys, your parents, your teachers, your coaches, your friends. If you're struggling, those are the people to talk to about these struggles, to lean on them more than you typically do. Not all the time or indefinitely for the rest of your life, but just for a short amount of time when you need it. That's a totally fine thing to do. And you do the same for them if they needed it. Another thing is to adjust my schedule as much as possible. So working my schedule, if it's super busy, removing things out of my schedule and just taking some downtime, taking some time to relax and recharge. It's so important, that idea of pushing hard, might be exam time or playoffs in sports, but then having time to pull back and rest and recharge. Fuel and movement in nature, just knowing that what we put into our bodies in terms of food affects our mental health. How much we move our bodies affects our mental health. And the amount of time we get in nature affects our mental health. So I just try to avoid junk food and fast food when I'm struggling. Not perfect with it, but just better than usual. And move my body. Just these ideas to promote health more than I typically would if I wasn't struggling. And some mindset shifts. I remember writing on my phone when I was in these deep struggles. I thought horrible thoughts, and I had all this fear and paranoia. And I just wrote, it said, don't believe the disempowering thoughts. And it felt like the more I believed into those disempowering thoughts, the more true they would become. And the less I believed them, the less true they would become. So I just reminded myself, don't believe those negative thoughts. Don't believe those disempowering thoughts. And just have that control of your mind of saying, I'm not going to believe, I'm not going to go down that thought pattern, and go a different route that's more positive. I also wanted to share 4 great things for your mental health. You guys want to hear those? Yeah. All right, because we want to be positive here, and we want to share that one of the best things for your mental health is connection, getting in touch with each other personally, in person, events like this, or with your friends, with your family, with your sports teams or artistic pursuits. Connection, because isolation is one of the first things we do when we struggle with our mental health. We isolate ourselves. And so having that connection, that in-person connection with each other, just like you're doing right now, is something important to hold on to and use to enhance your mind. Healthy coping tools. So often we can stumble into negative coping tools with drugs or alcohol or fast food or binge watching shows, and they make us slip downhill even further. And so replacing those with positive coping tools, like connecting with your friends or doing some sports or doing some art, having those healthy coping tools to lean on when you're doing well or struggling is important to remember. Insight and awareness, so insight into your own mind, having that insight of understanding your thoughts and understanding things like depression and anxiety and what they look like in people, so you can identify them if you're experiencing them yourselves. Because around 70% of mental illness onset happens in child and adolescence in Canada. So that's around your age. About 70% of the first time you struggle with your mental illness happens around that age in our society. And for Canadians aged 15 to 24, second leading cause of death is suicide. And that breaks my heart. Because I was almost one of those. And I've lost friends to suicide. And that's part of being at events like this, is raising that awareness, putting your name out there and your face in this room, saying, I'm going to be one person to support and change that stat. So you guys with me? Yeah, we're going to change that, right? Yeah, because it's not okay. It's not okay that the second leading cause of death for Canadians aged 15 to 24 is suicide. Would you agree? Yeah. You guys are the generation that can change that stat, because you have that energy and ideas, new ideas we need to change those stats. And the fourth thing for great mental health is goals and dreams. Who here sets goals on a regular basis? Wow, that's amazing. Who here does not have any type of dream within them? No, few of you. Who here has a dream that they're working towards? Yeah, that's amazing. And what do you guys do to pursue that dream? Any thoughts? Work hard, yeah? I agree, that's something required, usually for big dreams. What's that? Put your mind to it, yeah. Really putting your mental energy into those dreams, yeah. Don't let people take you down. I love that one because it's so common, right? The people around us see us pursuing our dreams and they want to tear us down. And you got to be strong. You got to believe in yourself. You got to surround yourself with people that believe in you, that support your dreams. And in turn, you got to support them with theirs, right? Hell yeah. Any other thoughts? Yeah. Sorry? Having experiences. Yeah, experiencing life. Not just living life through textbooks and reading, but experiencing life. Taking some hits, taking some bruises, because you strengthen yourself by doing that. Is it okay if I share one of my dreams with you guys? Yeah. Can I have the next slide, please? This is another photo by James Fry Stack. He's a good photographer. And this is on Wedge Mountain up in Pemberton, in BC here. But this is the project of MINDvsMOUNTAIN. And this idea came to me when I was freshly diagnosed with schizophrenia. And this idea was that I wanted to climb Mount Everest. And I know a lot of people think that and have that as a goal sometimes. But in that moment when I was deeply struggling, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't go to school or hang out with my friends or read an article, let alone my textbooks. But something deep within me said that I might be able to climb this mountain. And I said, if I can't use my brain, I'll use my body. And maybe I can inspire some other people to overcome their struggles if I can overcome this struggle I'm going through and reach that tangible goal. Because with mental health, often the the goal or the dream with mental health is kind of vague. It's unclear what recovery looks like, right? But with a mountaintop, it's very clear what the goal is to get to that mountaintop, to return home safely. So I loved that idea of how tangible it was, how real it was in my mind. And I kept pursuing it and kept getting into mountain climbing and just getting fit. And soon came up with this project of MINDvsMOUNTAIN, still pursuing this goal. So I'd like to share a quick video with you guys of what the purpose of this project is, if that's okay with you guys. Our journey is about the parallels between climbing mountains and climbing out of mental health struggles. We live in a world where mental health is rarely talked about, and it's often associated with shame and darkness, which leads to far too many people struggling in silence. We want to change that. So that's that idea of just opening up and embracing struggle and using the mountains to open up the dialogue around mental health, because we said, James joined on this journey. We said if we can be mountain climbers and talk openly about mental health, then everybody can. And it's okay to talk about, because there's still in society this shame and darkness that associated with mental health and mental illness. So that's part of what we're trying to change with that project. And that was the idea behind climbing South America's highest peak, Aconcagua, last year in Denali, and still trying to climb Everest and working towards that. And we'll be going to the Himalayas this coming spring to climb some mountains there and continue the path of development of ourselves. But for me, the mountains play an important role. I've learned so much from the mountains. I remember sometimes in the mountains, my mind gets very dark and negative, and I just have this feeling like something's going to go wrong. And I learned this phrase to practice when I'm feeling that way, is just this idea that this too shall pass. That those feelings don't last. That those feelings go away, those thoughts go away if you let them. And so every time I just say, okay, just get to the next camp and reassess there, and see how you're feeling. You don't have to go for the summit. The summit is always optional. But just giving myself time to process those thoughts and let them pass, essentially, is something I've learned from the mountains. Also, breaking big goals and dreams into small chunks. So also using visualization, because sometimes climbing a mountain, whether your goal is to graduate school or to whatever it might be, sports-wise or artistic-wise or health-wise, that goal can be overwhelming. That dream can be overwhelming. And breaking it down into small chunks. Okay, we're going to get to this little notch here, this rock, and then we're going to get to that camp, and then this camp, and then we'll go for the summit. That'll be a long day. So visualizing and just breaking that big goal and climb into smaller chunks has been something I learned from the mountains and can apply to my mental health or overall life. Also, this perspective shift that I find from climbing mountains, because climbing mountains is difficult, it takes a lot of effort, you're struggling your way up the mountains, but often you come back from a climb and you appreciate things in life so much more, the simple things. And I found the same thing with my mental illness, that going through a deep struggle actually is a strengthening exercise and something that can promote appreciation in you and make you feel good about everyday life, even though it hasn't changed at all. Just because you went through a struggle, just because you pursued a big goal. And so I encourage you to practice those things, take those lessons that I've learned from the mountains and apply them into your own lives. The next slide, please. So this is video from Denali. You guys want to see a little clip from Denali or Climb in Alaska? Yeah. This is just raw footage, and this is what it was like. This was our base camp at 14,000 feet. That's the route up there. This is James fixing us a kitchen. It's climbing up towards high camp. High camp was 17,000 feet. This was a windy day. This was me struggling with my flag. I tried to sometimes we all need a little help from our friends, right? And that was a good feeling right there. So that was obviously a tiny little bit of our climb. Our climb was took us 14 days to get to the summit, and then 2 days to get down of climbing. But it gives you a little sense of what it was like to be on that mountain, and just the intensity, but also how alive it makes you feel to pursue a dream like that and just be living it in a way that we did. So if we could have the next slide. So this is actually a smoothie recipe we created for you guys. And you'll all be getting smoothie bottles of my Mavrixx or MINDvsMOUNTAIN smoothie bottles with the smoothie recipe in it. And this is called the Vanilla Cake Protein Shake because it's tasty. It tastes literally like vanilla cake, but it's healthy for you and it helps your brain because it's got good ingredients in it. So I encourage you to check that out. Does that sound good to you guys? Yeah, awesome. And also on this card is a little invitation to join our community on Facebook. If you're on Facebook, at the MINDvsMOUNTAIN.com/community, that's on the card as well. So wanted to invite you guys to join our journey and follow along and share your own journeys as well of adventures and dreams and mental health. So that's what my dreams look like, and my goals in life are promoting mental health and climbing mountains, but having fun with it. And I encourage you, I invite you to have your own version of that, have your own version of dreams and goals and destinations you climb towards in your life and pursuits, because if not you, then who? So thank you guys. Hope that's been of service to you, and I wish you well on your journeys. Thank you so much.